team. Thank you very much for coming today. And I would like to welcome you all to ICODICON. I can say that from the previous day and the sessions during the day before, I can admit that it's a fruitful and insightful conference. The session it's research intensive, and we have to present 6 insightful papers. So let's start as the paper stated at the first during the schedule, and so we have the first paper to be presented. It will be 15 minutes max, with some questions if there are, and of course we can start. So you can start the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank my other colleagues, Professor Velentzas, Assistant Professor Broni, and PhD candidate Avramopoulos Eleftherios for the contribution of this paper. I'm going to present the article, The Effect of the Application of IFRS 16 on Business Profits, the Case of Petroleum Refining Companies. As we know, the adoption of IFRS 16 has impact on business profit, and recommends a reduction. This article will try to analyze the positive and negative aspects of the adoption of IFRS 16 in Greek oil refineries and the effects on the financial statement ratios. As we know, IFRS 16 replaced excise in accounting treatment of lease under IAS 17 lease, identification of leasing agreements, operating lease, and valuation of leasing transactions. IFRS 16 set out the principle of recognizing, measuring, presenting, and disclosing lease, and requires the lease to recognize all lease in its financial statement with a single account framework with a certain expansion. The group of companies applied IFRS 16 for the first time on January 1st, 2019, using the modified retrospective approach based on which the retrospective effect of the application of the standard was recorded on that date. Many audit companies as PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, Ernst & Young state that the adoption of IFRS 16 and the new requirements eliminate nearly all of balance sheet accounting for lease and redefine many commonly used financial metrics such as the gearing ratio and earnings before indirect tax, depreciation, and amortization. This will increase comparability, but also affect covenants, credit ratings, borrowing costs, and your stakeholders' perception of you. Another researcher, such as Cybercrime in 2017, states that the application of IFRS 16 will mainly have consequences as a lease, as it will be bound to recognize assets and liabilities that are currently not disclosed. Another researcher in 2018 stated that the effects on balance sheet are the following: increasing lease assets, increasing financial liabilities, and decreasing equity. For companies that have material of balance sheets lease, IFRS 16 is expected to result in an increase in lease asset and financial liabilities. In addition, effects on the income statement are the following: increasing earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, increasing operating profit and finance costs, and cost and profit before tax. For companies that have material off-balance sheet lease, IFRS 16 expect to result in higher profit before interest. Another researcher, Hendrik, in 2016 stated that there is an impact in financial report as operating lease will be capitalized. There will be a shift in financial metrics for businesses that have a particular large number of this type of lease. Asset turnover, acuity, and operating expenses will likely see a decrease. Conversely, liabilities, report debt, recorded assets, EBIT and EBITDA will see an increase. In addition, there is an impact in covenants and stakeholder relationship. With a change in financial metrics, ratio, and liabilities, companies will need to take extra care with their disclosure to explain the SWIFT figures. This could lead to a possible breach of financial-based agreements and contracts, both internally and externally. Leasing is an important and widely used financial solution. It enables companies to access and use properly an equipment without incurring large cash outflow at the start. It also provides flexibility and enables leases to address the issue and the residual value risk. In fact, sometimes leasing is the only way to obtain the use of a physical asset that is not available for purchase. Under IFRS 16, from a lease perspective, once an agreement meets the definition of a lease, they are all recognized in the same manner, except for practical expansion for short-term lease and low-value lease, for instance, 5,000 euros. The distinction between operating a finance lease remains in IFRS 16 only from the perspective of Lazos. According to International Account Standard 17, leases are classified at the inception of a lease as a finance lease or an operating lease based on whether or not substantially all the risks and rewards incidental to ownership are transferred. A finance lease is a lease that transfers substantially all the risks and rewards incidental to ownership of assets. In addition, according to IFRS 16, no distinction is made between finance and operating lease. From the perspective of leases, IFRS provides an option to lease with short-term lease to account for them as operating lease as they were accounted for under the National Account Standard 17 that is off-balance sheet. Same option is provided also for lease whether the underlying asset is of low value. Short-term lease, as I said before, it's about 5,000 euros, are those that are, as of the commencement date, have a term of 12 months or less. After considering reasonable certain lease option for extension and termination. This lesson must be applied consistently by class of underlying assets. Examples of low-value assets include tablets and personal computers, small items of office furniture, and telephones. This selection can be applied on a lease-by-lease basis. Now, what are the consequences of a lease? The new standard will affect virtually all commonly used financial ratio and performance metrics such as gearing, current ratio, asset turnover, interest cover, EBITDA, EBIT, operating profit, net incomes, EPS, ROCE, ROE, and operating cash flows. These changes may affect loan covenants, credit rating, the borrowing costs, and could result in other behavioral changes. This impact may be compelled many organizations to reassess certain lease versus buy decisions. Balances will grow, gearing ratios will increase, and capital ratio will decrease. This will also be a chance to both the expense character and recognition pattern. Entities leasing big-ticket assets, including real estate, manufacturing equipment, aircraft, trains, ships, and technology, are expected to be greatly affected. The impact for entities with numerous small leases, such as tablets and personal computers, small items and office furniture, and telephones, might be less, as the International Account Standard Board offers an extension for low-value assets with a value of $5,000 or euro or less when new. Low-value assets meeting this extension do not have to be recognized on the balance sheet. The cost to implement and continue to comply with a new lease standard could be significant for most leases, particularly if they do not already have an in-house lease information system. Now, the consensus about the lessors. Lease and lessor may need to consider renegotiating or restructuring existing future leases. Business and legal structures supporting lease should also be reassessed to evaluate whether these continue to be effective. Lessor accounting remains largely unchanged from the National Account Standard 17. However, lessors are expected to be affected due to the changed needs and behaviors from the customer, which impact their business model and lease products. Now, in order to write this article, we choose the case study method. According to Yin, the case study method has been and still is considered as a weak research method, and the derivative study has been considered depreciated as having inefficient precision, objective, or rigidity. However, scholars counter-argue that this negative standpoint derives from the poor comprehension of the particular method. At this point, it is essential to stress out the importance of understanding the research philosophy and approach is delivered for the examined information and data to be successfully interpreted into answer of the research topics. The case study method is the most widely used method of scientific research and is applied in many sciences such as sociology, psychology, economic and political sciences, and so on. This methodology, which usually qualitative, is more preferable to other research strategies. And when how and why questions have to be answered, when the researchers have little control over the events, and when the focus of these studies is a modern phenomenon. In addition, the case study methodology is appropriate when the research sector is not commonly known and the researcher deals with the theory building. Many researchers argue that the case study is a flexible research approach that is suitable for a range of different types of research questions. Several researchers have provided various definitions for the case study method. Now, we're going to speak about the analysis of this research. In order to define the research of the adoption of IFRS 16, we investigate the balance sheet and statement accounts of LP and Motor Oil Group companies. This group used the expression provided by the standard regarding the determination of lease. This particularly means that it applied the requirements of IFRS 16 to all contracts that were in force on January 1st, 2019 and were recognized at least under International Account Standard 17 and IFRS 4. In addition, the group of companies used the standard expense regarding lease fixed period of less than 12 months, which does not include purchase option for low value lease. Finally, the group applies a single discount rate to its category of lease with similar characteristics, with corresponding duration for similar fixed assets and in corresponding economic environment. The group has lease agreement for real estate and equipment of gas station, machinery, and mechanical equipment and means of transport. Prior to the adoption of IFRS 16, the group classified lease either as finance or as operating. Lease were capitalized at the commencement of the lease at the lower of the fair value of the asset and the present value of the minimum lease. We're going to show there is some funding. In order to find out what the influence of IFRS 16 on this group of companies, we do a ratio analysis. We take the current asset ratio, we take the leverage financial ratio, we take the efficiency ratio, we take the profitability ratio, we take the market value ratio. The result is in this box. On the left, we have the indicator, and on the right side, we have the consequences of applying IFRS 16 and the explanation. For instance, the indicator debt ratio will have an increase. The increase is due to the increased liabilities. In order to investigate the current liquidity ratio, we have a decrease. Why you have a decrease? Because current liability increase while current asset remains unchanged. In total asset turnover, we have decrease. The decrease is due to the recognition of new assets. EBITDA, we have a decrease. Sometimes, other times, we have increase. Both EBITDA and the interest expenses will increase. The increase is continuous on the characteristics of the lease portfolio. Earnings before interest and tax will have increased. The expense with the amortization of the right to use the asset will be lower than expense that are currently recognized with operating lease. Earnings before interest, tax, depreciation will have increased. It is no longer influenced by expenses that are currently recognized for the operating lease. Net earnings for the year, profit or loss. It is coordinated on the characteristics of the lease contracts and the tax regulation. Earnings per share. It's a coordinate on the effects on the earnings for the year. Return on invest capital. Both earnings before interest and tax and the financial debts will increase. The evolution of this indicator is consequence of the characteristics of the lease contracts. Return on equity. It's a coordinate on the effect of profit or loss, which in turn influenced by the characteristics of the lease contracts. Net cash flow generated by operating activities will have increased. Net cash flow generated by operating activities above profitability will have increased as well. Total net cash flows will have no consequences. In addition, we do another econometric findings. We try to put in one explanation the profit and loss account statement. We have these findings, and in conclusion, taking into account into the two companies, you can conclude, unlike the current International Accounting Standard 17 and International IFRS 16, will no longer differentiate between finance and operating lease at the lease perspective. More, all lease contracts will be recognized in the statement of financial position at the lease. This treatment will lead to changes of the information disclosure in the financial statement. In this line, the value of asset and the liabilities disclosed in the statement of financial position will increase. In addition, the profit or loss of the period will no longer be distributed on a straight line basis, as is currently the case of operating lease. The expense associated of the lease contracts consisting in the amortization of the right of use and the finance cost will differ between the reporting periods depending on the period of the contract, the amortization of the right to use the asset, the payment deadlines, and the implicit interest rate on the marginal interest rate. Through the total net cash flow will not be influenced, the statement of cash flows will show a higher operating cash flow, while the net cash flow generated by financial activities will decrease by the same amount. The change of the amounts disclosed in the financial statement will implicitly result in a change of the financial indicators determined basis on this. Hence, the debt ratio, the current liquidity, and the total asset turnover will decrease, while the profitability indicators, EBITDA and AB, earnings before interest and taxes, will increase. As for the influence of the net earnings, this will depend on the period of the contract, the payment deadline, the effective interest rate of the contract, or the marginal debt ratio, the lease contract portfolio, the amortization of the right to use the asset. Further research. You can do the same research for the other Greek companies or comparing this sample with other European companies. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for this insightful presentation with useful findings. Are there any questions? There are no questions. Let me check if there are questions from the audience. Okay, there are no questions. So thank you very much for your presentation. Let's move to the next presentation. I would like to kindly ask you to keep the time management, because we're already 50 minutes, and from now on I will be forced to interrupt you if you exceed the time management. So please keep the time management to less than 15 minutes. So let's move to the next one, please. Maria Petridou, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can clearly hear you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the honor to present our research here in the 4th International Conference of Ecodecon. Thank you, University of the Peloponnese. Here is my presentation. I'd like to thank my colleagues, Mr. Grigorios Lazos, Mr. Alkiviadis Karagiorgos, and Mrs. Dimitra Karagiorgou for their contribution to our research. The aim of our study, can you see my PowerPoint? Can you hear me? Can you see my PowerPoint? The aim of the new data... Excuse me?
We can see the PowerPoint.
You
but
can
you can also, if you press F5, we can see it in full screen.
Full screen. Oh, thank you.
Great. Now it's perfect.
The study of the new data on tax audit, which is the purpose of the present study, can help identify the shortcomings of the tax and audit mechanism. In addition, they can propose solutions for more efficient control mechanisms. These solutions can safeguard the necessary and effective main revenue of the state by establishing and certifying the amounts attributable to the transactions issued by each tax audit. The current level of today's ever-reshaping tax framework and the continuous improvement of tax procedures require the need to scientifically analyze the ongoing legal reforms and to understand the organizational and legal mechanisms used by the state to serve its interest in the implementation of tax exemptions. And the most important of these, in this respect, is the organization and functioning of state tax control, as well as the implementation of state tax interests. Of course, this is of growing interest in studying the operation of the tax audit mechanism. The relationship between tax papers and tax control is of the utmost importance for the proper functioning of a tax system. For many controls, The ability to detect real or artificial mismatches is considered as a major advance in the fight against tax evasion. At the present time, on-the-spot checks play a key role in the effectiveness of implementation of the tax administration and therefore in the effectiveness of the country's tax policy as a whole. The use of a risk-oriented approach when selecting items for field tax audits, a detailed analysis of risk areas, the use of all instruments provided by applicable law, including tax burden indicators, are engaged in private practice. If we can classify all the problems that arise in the tax administration process, we can divide them into 4 sections that fully describe the picture of the tax authorities' vulnerabilities, both during the field tax audits and in general. First of all, the interaction of tax authorities with other state structures. Then the geographical characteristics of the areas controlled and access to documents during the tax audit of the sector. Third, the improving of the quality of in-service auditing. And last one, the reducing tax disputes in the courts. Some suggestions based on the literature, it is necessary to develop tax legislation in Greece based on the best international experience in relation to tax papers and legal entities. Legislation should govern the interactions and exchange of information between tax authorities and other supervisory bodies. By merging the information flows and exchanging them, target tax audits can be carried out in the sector, ensuring the maximum effectiveness of tax audits in terms of additional budgetary burdens resulting from their results at less cost. In order to reduce and prevent a tax office in Greece, it's necessary to establish a tax advisory institute. To this end, the rights and obligations of tax authorities should be attributed to by the contact tax regulations, maintaining a balance between the interest of the state and taxpayers in the principles of cooperation. Finally, to achieve simplicity and prompt procedures, since courts demand a variety of specialized knowledge regarding tax disputes, it's possible that separate tax training courses should be initiated. The idea is based on the United States experience, where an independent body reviews tax papers complaints. Today, there is a need to improve tax legislation and the first part of the Greek tax code to improve the organization and technology of tax authorities. A situation where different tax returns are audited at different times creates a great deal of difficulty on tax papers and tax authorities. This increases the time spent by tax authorities to accept and process tax returns to tax authorities and complicates the delivery of tax returns to payers. The effectiveness of tax audit is finally a pivotal point as it contributes to increased public revenue, equitable distribution of tax burdens, the fight against tax evasion, and thus the acceleration of economic growth, which is the aim of all the above moves. The effectiveness of tax audit is a... Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for this presentation. Let me check if any questions. 1 minute. So I would like to pose a question. Do you think that the effectiveness of the taxation system is political or institutional problem? I mean, the political system doesn't work well, or the, in case of Greece, of course, or the institutional framework, or both of them?
I think both of them. It's a problem that concerns both political and institutional frameworks.
The reality is that, in all terms, the the institutional framework is problematic, and we have seen a lot of reports that, you know, if we want the taxation system to be enhanced, we have to first to build the monitoring, the institutional organizations / mechanisms in order to, you know, to see effectiveness to great extent. I'm coming because we're academics, and this is the reality for many years, is that you know, based on what you declare, you might be valid in order to have an eating-free card as a student, or to participate with a discount in a master degree. But we have all experienced cases where, you know, people that do not declare their incomes, they are enjoying benefits and privileges, while at the same time people that are in vulnerable categories do not have access to this. So do you think, the second question, very fast one, do you think that the way that we are collecting data or declaring our incomes should change, and why doesn't
it? I think, as I said in our study before, it's a problem, a huge problem is the tax code of Greece, it's the legislation. I think it's unfair in situations as the unfair treatment of someone that has big incomes and someone that has small incomes. It's a big problem, the legislation. I think it has to change and show it is a political theme.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We can move to the next presentation. I think that, if I'm not wrong, the next two presentations are from the same person. Or will be different presenters. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes. The same presenter.
Okay, thank you very much for being here today with us. If you can press F5 in order to see it in full screen, your presentation. I mean.
Yes. Okay.
Great. So you will be the presenter of the next two presentations. Of course, we'll have individual questions in each presentation, but just not the audience to be confused. So the ball is with you. You may start your presentation.
Thank you very much for the honor to be participate in this conference, and for the honor to coordinate as a department of University of Western Macedonia, International and European Economic Studies, to coordinate in this conference. So the first of the papers I'm going to present is benchmarking as an evaluative and improving process of organization strategy, quality management principles. Georgia Broni, John Velentzas, and Georgia Charitoudi are the participants of this paper. So let's begin. Benchmarking is the search to find and execute best practices. Comparative evaluation presupposes that a company freely learns the way in which other companies do something better, and it is not enough just to imitate them, but on the contrary, it may try to improve their techniques. Authors Pitts and Lay approach the concept of benchmarking through the concept of continuous control improvement. Pitts and Lay then outlined the 4 steps that companies take when applying benchmarking: recognition by executives of internal processes that need improvement, attempt to identify the model companies that are considered the most successful in the context of the above procedures, initiation of contacts with the managers of the company to be studied for exchange of views, trying to imitate the factors and ways of action that lead to higher performance and quality improvements. So let's connect now benchmarking with charismatic quality leadership. Includes faith, commitment, dedication, trust, inspiration, admiration, excellence, risk-taking, self-sacrifice, vision, structure, strong belief in it and its ability to transmit unconventional behavior, sensitivity to changes in the environment, Max Weber said. Ask the questions, what should be done, what is right for the business. We have developed actions plans, took responsibility for decisions and communications. They focused more on opportunities than problems. They created productive meetings, and they thought and talked with we rather than I. There are many quality leadership and benchmarking process forms around. All that remains is to discover and train them properly in order to form a positive team spirit within the companies and wherever a leader is needed. A leader is one who tries not to lose. So we have an example very quickly. I will tell you some things because I have to continue. Matsusita, a businessman, became a businessman at the age of 20-something, a business leader in his 30s and 40s, and a top-class business reformer at the age of 50 and something. I'd like to say to you now that we can see Matsusita as an example, a paradigm of quality leadership. In a static world, us are called to play the role of a leader. Even if we continue to grow until we are 90, and the development of quality leadership and benchmarking process skills begins to concern more and more people. So we have case study 1, Xerox, the beginning of benchmarking. And when I refer to Xerox, I mean the beginning of competitive benchmarking. So Xerox, in 1938, inventor Chester Carlson made the first xerographic image in the United States. In 1944, the Battelle Memorial Institute in Columbus, Ohio, agreed with Carlson to improve his new procedure, which Carlson called electrophotography. In 1961, Carlson's invention was registered under the trademark Xerox and Xerox Corporation. Strong demand for Xerox products led the company from superpower to revenue rising from $37 million at 1960 to $268 million in 1965. Xerox became vulnerable due to intense competition from both the US and the Japanese. The operating costs of the company were high. The average cost of making photocopiers in Japanese companies was 40 and 50% lower than of Xerox. As a result, the return on assets fell to less than 8%, and the market share of the photocopier fell from 86% in 1974 to just 17% in 1984. David Kearns, the CEO, launched a quality leadership and benchmarking process that focused on reducing construction costs to improve quality. Of measuring products, services, and practices against tough competitors, identifying gaps and setting targets. The goal is always to achieve superiority in quality, product, reliability, and cost. Xerox has developed its own benchmarking model that can be summarized in 5 stages: design, analysis, integration, action, and maturity. This is the 5 stages we said before. So Xerox has focused on several other best practice companies to compare processes such as American Express, Florida Power and Light, Honda, Toyota, Hewlett-Packard, Saturn, Fuji Xerox, DuPont, etc. Customer complaints were reduced by more than 60%. Customer satisfaction with Xerox sales processes improved by 40%. Service procedures by 18%. Administrative procedures by 21%. Overall customer satisfaction was rated at more than 90% in 1991. Xerox became the only company in the world to win all 3 quality awards: DEM, the Deming Award, MOL, the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award, and the European Quality Award in 1992. Case study 1, very quickly, I would like to say to you that Hellenic Benchmarking Center is a structure of the Uranium Research Unit that aims to disseminate the technique of benchmarking to companies and organizations. And as for the Western Macedonia, we had informative events organized with the participation of executives of business chambers, development and research organizations. 65 consultants were certified in the new application in order to create a sufficient number of local certified consultants in the region for the implementation of application in businesses in the area. Conclusion. For many reasons, there are many to continue to faithfully follow the growth and model of the 20th century. Sometimes the problem is complacency. Once they have succeeded, why change? They do not think at all about their personal renewal. They do not think about developing whatever quality leadership and benchmarking skills they have. In essence, they are embracing the past, not the future. An attachment strategy to the past is likely to become increasingly ineffective in the coming decades. It will be better for all of us to start learning and to advance benchmarking and quality leadership with new techniques in order to develop whatever skills we have and how to help our organizations in the transformation process. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was really insightful. Are there any questions from the panel, or shall we move forward to the next presentation with the same presenter, of course? And you might have questions in both papers at the end, so let's save some time.
So the second, okay.
in order, it would be great if we can leave a couple of minutes because the schedule is a little bit tight. So it would be great if we'll have it in 10 or 12 minutes. I just want to give 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the presentations for discussion, if it's possible. So if you can concentrate to the main aspects and main stuff, it will be great.
Thank you. Okay. The second one is cybercrime in information era, ethics and dilemmas exploiting the anonymity provided by the internet. Participants Georgia Broni, John Velentzas, and Nikos Kartalis. By definition, cyber ethics presuppose socially acceptable behavior based on respect for users' rights and linked to guiding principles in the use of the internet, which deal with ethical, social, and legal issues. With this in mind, some basic principles of cyber ethics are presented below, which are an essential handbook for users and professionals, and any violation leads to the so-called electronic crime. Indicatively, some researchers describing the forms of cybercrime state that it is not allowed the use of computer systems to cause harm or damage to other people, the use of computer systems to transmit false, misleading testimony, unauthorized access to computer systems and websites through accounts excluding their administrators, and access to computer systems for committing a crime or dishonest act. More specific, only a few of them I will read. The irresponsible use of computer systems which are not sufficiently protected and can be used as a means of attacking other computer systems, the spread of malware or software that steals personal data and account information, the publication of photos or personal data without the consent of the persons concerned, and the lack of respect for the privacy of each other, threats, harassment, continuous spam, or intimidation of the user, and of course, identify thefts or imitation of other person's characteristics. So we have a table here, the table of all, the matrix of cybercrime. We can see in the first table, integrity-related harmful acts, e-crime, computer-related deception, theft, frauds. In the third table, content-related violence, personal harassment, and hate speech in the e-crime category, and content-related violence, online gender trade, and cyberbullying, of course. First, the internet has created more opportunities for traditional crime, such as phishing, chipping, fraud. These kinds of crimes already existed in the natural or real world, but the internet has allowed the rate and prevalence of these crimes to increase. Secondly, e-commerce and the spread of hate speech. And at the third level, internet has led to types of crimes that arise, such as spam, denial of service, copyright piracy. There are 4 types of criminal acts related to integrity, information technology, content related to obscenity, and violence. So, cybercrime targeting the computer. Attempts are made to steal data for financial gain. Okay, this refers to financial fraud, which is related to illegal activities through computers and networks for the purpose of financial gain. We have a case study very quickly to present. Unlimited operation on May 9th, 2013, 8 men in New York were charged with stealing $2.8 million in cash from various ATMs. These men formed the New York cell of an international cybercrime ring that carried out unlimited operations. They had invaded the network of global financial institutions to steal prepaid debit card data. They managed to eliminate the withdrawal limit of these cards using fake cards made from the stolen data, the Karagiorgou managed to withdraw huge amounts of money from ATMs around the world. So the New York prosecutor remarked that unlimited activities are characterized by three characteristics: the surgical accuracy of the hackers who carry out cyber attacks, the global nature of the cybercrime organization, and the speed and coordination with which the organization carries out its activities. Okay, we have internet child abuse. It's in the scales of modern society worldwide. It's growing in size as technology evolves, allowing producers to promote their illegal products safely, quickly, and easily. Cyberbullying. Cyberbullying, of course, nowadays is on the top topics about e-crime. It is related to the constant use of computers for useless posts or targeted comments about a person, which are uttered in obscene, vulgar, offensive, and abusive language, underestimate the recipient, and contain obscene, immoral, and threatening suggestions. Comments are offensive, relate to gender, nationality, political and religious beliefs, habits, personal characteristics, sexual preferences, etc. Many times the culprit is anonymous, so the victim does not know where he is receiving the attack from. About 15 until 35% of young people are victims of cyberbullying. 10 until 20% of young people admit their involvement in cyberbullying. Catfishing. It's an online surveillance in which a malicious user pretends to be another human being and tries to communicate with the victim through social media. All of these forms of e-crime are under the umbrella of theoretical scene of communicative cybernetics. Only I would like to note something about Luhmann, who had a communicative theory. We're going through 5 levels of interrelations of its subsystems. Luhmann, according: aggression, survive or die; bureaucracy, follow the norms and rules; competition, my gain is your loss; decision, disclosing individual feelings and intentions; and empathy, cooperation in one unified interest. Conclusion. Although the idea of the network organization has been a topic of discussion for a couple of decades, we are now entering an era in which we can observe real, decentralized, autonomous network organizations in a global scale. What is important in this development is that not only organizations as institutions are able to network with other organizations, but people are now able to network person to person as never before. Internet and mobile telecom technologies are enabling people to meet and to coordinate their activities in ways that are profoundly affecting their lives, both professional and private. Perhaps the best example of this positive potential of a global, decentralized, autonomous networked organization is the World Wide Web. However, where individual networking capabilities seem to play a predominant role in organizing, show that such developments are not limited to internet domains, and on the contrary, are vulnerable to electronic crime. Thank you for your attention.
So thank you very much for this useful and very informative indeed presentation. There were plenty of stuff, and I hope that you will share these presentations with the audience, the others, I mean, not only you, in order to gain some more information, because I know that the time was limited and there were plenty of really useful information over there, insightful information. and timely and contemporary in all terms. I will not ask for questions because we have very limited time. We have 50 minutes for 2 presentations, and the load, I mean, in order to be precise, because the next session will start, comes to Mr. Panou. So what we'll do, I'll give directly the speech to Mr. Panou, and in order to present in a row the 2 presentations, and then hopefully we'll have, if we stuck to the schedule, and I mean, Mr. Panou, I know that the time is limited, and I don't want to be unfair with anyone, but you know, it's the session was overloaded from the beginning. So the main thing that the audience would like to hear is what is new, the contribution, and all that. So I think that you can present both papers in a timely manner, if it's possible.
Okay.
But I don't want to be unfair. So
yes.
You'll have the 15 minutes for each paper, but as we discussed at the beginning, let's be 10 minutes for each one and have some questions. Both presentations are active, but we can merge them somehow.
Yes, sir. I understand. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can clearly hear you.
Allow me to first introduce myself. My name is Grigorios Panou. I'm a lawyer in Thessaloniki, and I'm a scientific collaborator in the School of International European Economic Studies of University of Western Macedonia. The first presentation is about is a legal one. It's about a company form of the European law. Allow me first to share my PowerPoint presentation. It's a rather rudimentary. Can you see it? I can hear you. Mr. Apostolopoulos, I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. It's have you pressed F5? Okay.
F5.
I can see it now. I can see it. Okay.
You can see it. Okay.
How many slides is this?
9. 8, 9.
Oh, great.
It's a rudimentary. It's totally rudimentary.
Okay.
So,
okay. Great.
The subject of my presentation is about the European Cooperative Society. The European Cooperative Society is a supranational private company of the EU law with a legal personality which has as its principal object the satisfaction of its members' needs and or the development of their economic and social activities. This is the term of the European Cooperative Society. It is characterized by the following cooperative principles: the principle of the coverage of its members' needs, or the promotion of their economic and social activities, the principle of the democratic structure, one member, one vote, the principle of mutuality, the open door principle, there shall be no artificial limitation of the entry of new members, that there shall be no discrimination, the principle of control and distribution of the net profit for the financial year of an equitable basis, the principle of the primacy of the individual, which is reflected in the specific rules of membership, resignation, expulsion. Just a minute. The SCE regulation from year 2003 creates a new form of cooperative which can operate across the European Economic Area based on registration in one member state. Its members may be either individuals or enterprises. These members may consist wholly or partly of customers, employees, or suppliers. The essential aim of the SCE regulation is to enable the establishment of an SCE by physical persons resident in different member states or legal entities established under the laws of different member states. It will also make possible the establishment of an SCE by the merger of two existing cooperatives or by conversion of a national cooperative into the new form without first being wound up, where the cooperative is a registered office and head office within one member state and an establishment or subsidiary in another member state. The SCE regulation does not cover other areas of law such as taxation, competition, or insolvency. Which are the incentives to establish a European cooperative society? The SCE provides greater legal certainty and flexibility in cross-border activities. The SCE offers greater flexibility in regulating the involvement of employees in supervisory or administrative organ. The SCE constitutes a supranational company which is appropriate for the cooperation within national cooperatives. The European orientation of the European identity and the positive European image. This is the most important incentive to establish a European cooperative society. On the other hand, several issues of the SCE are not regulated by the European law, but left to the national law of the member states. Therefore, there are as many variations of the SCE as there are member states. The applicable law, an SCE is governed by the SCE regulation, as been told, which sets only its formation in detail, while other issues are rudimentarily regulated. Second, the provisions of its statute, which are contractual rules, the laws of the member states. In addition, the SCE is governed by Council Directive 2003/72 of year 2003, which supplements the statute of European Cooperative Society concerning the involvement of employees. The formation of the SCE may be formed either by natural persons or by legal persons. A new SCE may be formed by 5 or more natural persons or companies and firms either or in other legal bodies governed by public or private law. It can also be formed by merger or by conversion. A cross-border element between the persons involved is provided as a condition of all types of formation. The minimum capital required is 30,000 euros. The members have equal rights and obligations. Different members' categories and special rights for certain types of members can be provided in the statute. Also, in some circumstances, cooperatives may have also among other members a specified proportion of investor members who do not use their services, the so-called investor non-user members. The registered office of an SCE must be located within the community in the same member state as its head office. The registered office of SCE may be transferred to another member state. Such transfers will not result in the winding up of the SCE or the creation of a new legal person. The structure of organs it may have 2 or 3 organs. Like the first one is the general meeting of the SCE. A general meeting of its members is mandatory for the SCE. Furthermore, the founders can opt for a 2-tier system. Besides the general meeting of its members, the SCE comprises a supervisory organ and a management organ, or for a 1-tier system. Besides the general meeting of its members, the SCE comprises only an administrative organ. The members of the SCE organs may be appointed for a period laid down in the statutes not exceeding 6 years. Now the employee participation, the ESCE, the Council Directive provides 3 variants of employee participation which constitute a compromise between the different legal systems of the member states. The right to information, the so-called French and Scandinavian model, the right to the consultation, the so-called British model, and the right of participation in decision-making processes within the European Cooperative Society, the so-called German model. As a conclusion, we can say that the establishment of the European Cooperative Society represents considerable progress on the cross-border cooperative activities within the European single market. However, the SC does not constitute the only legal form available for such an activity. The case law of the Court of Justice of the European Union facilitates the cross-border activity to national companies. The SCE is thus in competition with the national companies of the member states. Thank you very much for listening.
So thank you very much for your presentation, and I think that this presentation links well with the presentation about taxation and the institutional enhancement. And shall we move forward to the next one, the last one, please?
Yes, allow me first to find the PowerPoint presentation. Next thing, the next subject is the obligation of the investment firms to provide information to their clients under MiFID II. What is the MiFID II? As a result of the financial market crisis in 2007-2008, the revised MiFID II, along with the regulation number 600 of year 2014, the so-called MiFIR, constitutes the central foundation for the provision of financial services within the EU. In the scope of MiFID II, provisions about the protection of investors are included. MiFID II and MiFIR are framework legislation which is supplemented and specified by numerous delegated acts and developed by the European Securities and Markets Authority. In order to ensure adequate protection of investors in the EU, MiFID II provides different obligations of the investment firms concerning, among other things, their behavior. The obligation of the investment firms to provide information to their clients constitutes an essential part of the relation of their contract obligations, which were already regulated by MiFID I and further developed by MiFID II. MiFID II. The requirements of MiFID II for information to clients contain a high level of detail and depend partly on the services provided, but also on the category of clients concerned. In Article 24, Paragraph 4 of MiFID II is laid down a general principle regarding the obligation of the investment firms to provide information to their clients. Appropriate information by providing in good time to clients or potential clients about the investment firms and its services, the financial instruments and proposed investment strategies, execution venues, and all costs and related charges. General information should be available to clients before the provision of investment services. The terms of the agreement must be provided by the investment firms in good time before a client or potential client is bound by any agreement for the provision of the investment services or ancillary services or before the provision of those services. Investment firms must also notify new clients and existing clients of their categorization as a retail client, a professional client, or an eligible counterparty. Investment firms must provide clients of potential clients in good time before the provision of investment services or ancillary services to clients or potential clients, with a general description of their nature and risk of financial instruments, taking into account in particular the client's categorization as either a retail client, professional client, or eligible counterparty. Information on costs and associated charges. The information which should be provided to clients or potential clients about all costs and related charges must include the information on all costs and associated charges. The information relating to both investment and ancillary services included the cost of advice, the cost of financial instrument recommended or marketed to the client, and how the client may pay for it, also encompassing any third-party payments. The information about investment advice and obligation to inform the client whether or not the advice is provided on an independent basis. When investment advice is provided, the investment firm must, in good time, before it provides investment advice, inform the client whether or not the advice is provided on an independent basis. Restrictions on inducements. Within the scope of independent investment advice exists an almost absolute prohibition of provision. When an investment firm informs the client that investment advice is provided on an independent basis, the investment firm must not accept and retain fees, commissions, or any monetary or non-monetary benefits paid or provided by any third party or a person acting on behalf of third party in relation to the provision of the service to clients. Obligation to inform the clients about the legal or economic links of the investment firm with third-party entities. The investment firm must inform the client whether the range of financial instruments provided by entities has close links with the investment firm or any other legal or economic relationships, such as contractual relationships, or so close as to pose a risk of impairing the independent basis of the advice provided. Obligation to provide the client with a periodic assessment of the suitability of the financial instruments. When instrument advice is provided, the investment firm must inform the client whether the investment firm will provide the client with a periodic assessment of the suitability of the financial instruments recommended to that client. And finally, the conflicts of interest between investment firms and their clients. Investment firms must take organizational measures for the identification, avoidance, and regulation of conflicts of interest between themselves, including their managers, employees, and tied agents, or any person directly or indirectly linked to them by control and their clients, or between any client, one client and another, that arise in the course of providing any investment and ancillary services, or combinations thereof, including those caused by the receipt of inducements from third parties or by the investment firm's remuneration and other incentive structures. There is a documentation obligations for the investment firms. The investment firm must establish a record that includes the document or documents agreed between the investment firm and the client that set out the rights and obligations of the parties, and the other terms of which the investment firm will provide services to the client. There are also warning obligations for the investment firms. When providing investment services other than investment advice or portfolio management, the investment firm must ask the client or potential client to provide information regarding the person's knowledge and experience in the investment firm field relevant to the specific type of product or service offered or demanded, so as to enable the investment firm to assess whether the investment service or product envisaged is appropriate for the client. Reporting obligations. The investment firm must provide the client with adequate reports of the service provided in a durable medium. Those reports must include periodic communications to clients, taking into account the type of the complexity of financial instruments involved and the nature of the service provided to the client. We must include the cost associated with the transactions and services undertaken on behalf of the client. And finally, as a conclusion, we can say that the level of information of the European legal framework is very high, though complicated, extremely complicated. The obligation to provide information under MiFID II is applied in general to every category of customers. The requirements for detailedness and comprehensiveness of information under MiFID II depend on the respective client segment. Besides a general description of the nature and extent of risks of the financial instruments, MiFID II requires comprehensive information about the risks particular to that specific type of instrument, including information about the definition of the target market. The detailness of the MiFID II and the delegated acts aim to protect the investors. However, they are complicated in nature, and the regulation of the investors' protection by more legal acts instead of its regulation by a sole codified legal act constitute a burden for the investment firms and cast doubts about their comprehensiveness and effectiveness. Thank you very much for listening. I was fast. Well done. Can you hear you?
Yes, you were really fast and on time. And thank you very much for this insightful presentation. I know that it was a little bit time pressuring the fact that you had to present two papers, but I really like the fact that you focus on the main aspects and you present things regarding contribution and all that in a timely manner. I would like to thank you all for this insightful presentation. And before I go to any questions, if there are from your behalf, I would like to say that what I got from this session is that business firms, their profitability, the way that they're doing business are heavily dependent on the institutional framework, regulations, like taxation or MIF and all that. I think that what this session tells me, and I would like to discuss this with you if you have any questions, is that we need to strengthen our support to entrepreneurship, business world in general, in national and European level, and see effectiveness. As Ms. Broni said, that we have now with cybercrime, the new areas that weren't aware of them. There are ethical dilemmas over there. So I think that, and the COVID-19 created the new world, undeniably, and we have new challenges in front of us. And I'm glad that we did this discussion, because all this, as Ms. Kartalis said, creates a new world regarding profitability, and we can see possibly new areas over there, along with the institutional framework, which heavily depends, of course, on political system. But in any case, I think that we're in front of new challenges, and I think that this session show us or acted as a compass of what we are doing so far and where we would like to be in the future. So if you have any questions, any something that you want to state, please, the speech is on you.
No questions. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the helpful assistance to our presentation. I would like to thank to the other presenters for the very nice presentations. I hope to meet you again next year about ICON 2021. And I believe that this conference it was very nice about the papers that they all presented. And I believe a lot of students from our university attend this conference. And I believe they add a lot of information in their knowledge. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, so we're at the end of this session. I would like to thank all the presenters for their contribution. I would like to thank Professor Petropoulos Dimitris and Kiriakoulis George for organizing this conference. And I would like to thank Varlas Sotiris and Net Touring for supporting all this virtual and difficult conference and shifted from in a few weeks from in person to virtual one. I would like to meet you all next year in post-COVID period in person in Kalamata, and meet you in person, have a fruitful discussion, have proper breaks with lunch and dinner instead of being home and all that. And I would like to help all the students. I would like to thank all the students for participating. And as the president of the conference said, only yesterday, approximately 1,900 viewers have been followed the conference via live streaming. It's a huge number in a difficult period. And thank you all. I hope that we'll meet under proper situations near in the future.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.